The Final Fantasy VII Remake was released on Friday, finally rewarding what felt like a lifetime of patience, or at least 13 years since the original was released, and put Square on the map. Despite my lukewarm opinion on the original, I got caught up in the hype, having watched the trailers alongside everyone else and read some early reviews, and I played it on release day. And it was something. Before we get into the game itself, let me explain where I'm coming from. Final Fantasy VIII got me into Final Fantasy, not 7. And when I finally did play 7, I thought it was just okay. So when the remake was announced, I pretty much thought, cool, I'll probably play it. But honestly guys, my confidence in Square jumped off a cliff with Final Fantasy 13, and then 15, and whatever other miscellaneous Final Fantasy titles came out from them. So I figured new Square would create a new Final Fantasy and I would, hate it. But if they're going to add new things or change things, I had no special attachment to the original. It turns out having no special attachment and low expectations is quite a good thing to have. The Final Fantasy VII Remake managed to take advantage of both those things for me personally. There's a lot of new stuff in the remake, story and dialogue-wise. They push the what's wrong with Cloud angle strong and fast, introducing a weird invisible ghost storyline, and give lesser characters a lot more presence. Most notably, this is seen in Jessie, who is now a complete bae, and I'm a little on #Team Jessie. They straight up show you that the destruction of the reactor is an inside job. A lot of people will probably hate this, but you know what? I really liked it. I think most of the story changes make sense, and the dialogue is mature. Mature as in more smart Final Fantasy XII dialogue and less anime cliche Final Fantasy XIII dialogue. All the characters can flesh out their personalities, and some of that is also thanks to the voice actors who are good. To be clear, I think all the voice actors are experienced and great, but I say good because Aerith's direction bothers me. A lilt to her voice that makes her voice sound very not authentic, but that's just my opinion.
A flower?
That's right. It's a gift. For scaring those things away.
The world certainly is expanded, and it's hard to argue it's a bad thing, but I'll try for all the old-fashioned JRPG boomers like me. I don't love open-world games, and I don't love useless side quests because I feel the need to do them even though I don't actually have to. Final Fantasy 15 was so bogged down with those useless side quests, I turned off the game. Final Fantasy 7 seems to have learned from Final Fantasy 15, and doesn't give you dozens of options immediately. But as someone who is absolutely keen on seeing all nuggets of Tifa and Cloud flirting, the idea that a side quest might have it, and I might not do it because I don't want to catch 3 cats, legit a side quest guys, makes me sad. I don't want Final Fantasy 13 linear, but I don't want Final Fantasy 15 open world either. Final Fantasy 7 has found a suitable middle ground for me, and will probably be perfect for others. The combat system was promising because I heard the guy who did Kingdom Hearts was on board, but honestly, I'm indifferent to it. There's strategy, but there's also a lot of button mashing. It's not as blinding as Final Fantasy 15, and that's a good thing. I realize there's no way that Final Fantasy could have kept turn-based random encounters, but I wish they had gone into something more strategic, or maybe just slow, because that's what I like. Kingdom Hearts was action, but it also had a pacing to it I appreciate. Now everything is fast all the time. There is a classic mode, but it's not like going back to ye old days of Final Fantasy, and its only available difficulty option is easy. It's more akin to what I like, but I just personally wish things would slow down with Final Fantasy combat instead of speed up. The one thing I want to comment on outside of just the gameplay is the way they're releasing the game. If you didn't know, Final Fantasy VII Remake is not the full Final Fantasy VII game, it's just Midgard. It is apparently around 40 hours of gameplay with all the side quests and such, or so I've heard, so it's still worth the price. It just sucks we literally only get Midgard. Now they filled Midgard with more interesting stories, characters, and environments, so I can see their reasoning, and they didn't just skimp on a whole game to do this. But having to wait for I don't know how long for the complete story is a bummer, when in my opinion, most of the cool stuff happens when you leave Midgard. There's still so many more interesting main characters to meet. It's a sour note for the fans of the original game, I think, but not sour enough to discourage you from actually playing this game. Overall, Final Fantasy Remake is a good game. It flows well, it keeps the action up, it makes me happy to see characters I do like showing more personality, and it fits into the current meta of games very well. People are going to like this game. You'll probably like the game. Maybe not the most hardcore of the Final Fantasy VII elitists, who will scream that they changed way too much, but those guys are kind of assholes anyways. This should appeal to the old Final Fantasy crowd as well as the new Final Fantasy crowd much more than Final Fantasy XV ever hoped it would, despite Final Fantasy XV's tagline for old and new Final Fantasy fans alike or whatever it had. And I hope you can trust me that it's not just because nostalgia. Do you buy a PS4 and the game itself immediately? Only if you fucking love Final Fantasy VII. But if you have a PS4, you'll enjoy this whether you're a Final Fantasy fan or just a video game fan. If you disagree, or super agree, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and happy materia hunting in Final Fantasy VII.